Hello, it's Yusuf here, and this is the multi-part video series on how to set up your Mac for maximum productivity. And I cannot express how fundamental having these basics in place is to improving your workflow, making you happier and less stressed and less frustrated when you're working with a screen in any form. So to start with, to try and make a case for why this is so important, have you ever watched your mum try and Google something? It's heartbreaking seeing anyone who's not computer literate stumbling around trying to get through working through something and taking 10 times as long. Now, what we're not aware of is that even people who think that they're quite computer literate, I'm certainly not, like I'm not a programmer, but I've come such a long way with this and I'm going to share some of those with you, but even people who think that they are somewhat computer literate are basically a grandma Googling something until they do all these things and have this stuff in place. I remember having been forced to use a Windows computer as part of working in finance. And I remember thinking, like, I must be spending 2 hours a day just waiting for a computer to do something, waiting for that hourglass to go through or the spinning wheel or whatever. And you're just thinking, like, this is costing so much in man hours, and in, like, this is, say, costing one person 2 hours in this day, plus the switching time of when you're waiting for something to happen and then you switch and you do something else and you come back and you have to get yourself back into the headspace of what was going on. And that's multiplied by every day and every employee of that company all the time. Like, and that's such a hidden cost that probably the management are not aware of how much they're dragging down the productivity of their staff with waiting for a computer. So that's one lesson, just don't use a Windows computer. And I'm going to assume here using a Mac, it's exactly tantamount to trying to go for a run wearing wooden clogs using a Windows computer compared to a Mac, which is like a pair of Nike Air Maxes. Now, another analogy, which is that by not having the basics of this kind of computer literacy in place and being able to smoothen the process from your brain to the task that you want to do, it's like trying to read and not really fully understanding English, or not having a light on in the room. It's that fundamental. So it's really, really important that you get this stuff in place, and it's just going to improve your life immeasurably. So to begin, this is why all of this is important. And I'm going to cover the Tiago Forte productivity pyramid. This kind of encapsulates all of this stuff so well in a very complete model. And that is, the bottom rung that I'm talking about here is digital fluency. That is basic computer usage, web browsing, emails, shortcuts, having an inbox system and a capture system for if someone sends you a link or something comes into your inbox, how do you process that without derailing your whole progress and what you're doing? Speed reading, all that kind of stuff. Now, most people think they're good at this stuff, but they really are not. Next step up, we have task management and workflow, and then it goes into habit formation and the kind of higher psychological traits with project management and personal knowledge management, which are kind of beyond the scope of this video series. But it's very much a double-edged sword. A computer at all times is either enhancing your productivity or worsening it. And it's not that it's neutral. It's always either making it much better or much worse. Unfortunately, you have to be the one that takes the reins with this, because the online environment is becoming very predatory right now, and it's the whole thing is designed to capturing your attention, distracting you as much as possible, and moving you away from the actual task at hand. It used to be that you could sit down, say before 2013, before social media algorithms started to become really malignant, is that you could sit down and you could study something for 2 hours, or you could write an article for 2 hours, and it was fine. You wouldn't really have a problem with your focus. Now you've got these constant things just batting at your attention, as well as these little bastards. So when you have these things in place, you will go back to that beautiful, simple time once again. So prepare to double your productivity. If you front load the setup now and just follow along with these videos as we're watching it, then you will forever reap the gains. And it'll take maybe an hour to get everything set up fully, and once you've done that, it'll pay back in reams and reams. A great article that I read recently from Better Humans was this, and it's about setting up your iPhone, but it very much applies to the same thing, which is little gaps when you're waiting for something to happen. Like even if something takes 5 seconds to load, that opens up a crack for your attention to then switch to something else, and you end up getting caught up, or you're waiting for something to load, for an app to come up, and you're like, oh, I'm just going to check my phone. 30 minutes later you come back and you're like, where's that 30 minutes gone? It completely screwed over your day, derailed your productivity for that period. So the more we can eliminate those things, and the more we can create this total sense of flow between your brain and the task that you're doing, then you're not going to be waiting for a computer anymore. You're not going to be stumbling over your own slowness with a computer, and it's just gonna I'm just very excited about this. So to start with, when you're watching this video, make sure you have the play pause keys enabled in Chrome, so that you're not having to go and find the tab and whatever. You can literally just have it on one screen or on one side of the screen, and you can play and pause as you go through the process. If you're using a different browser, or if you want to have global control with your play and pause keys, you can download Bearded Spice, and that allows you to map those play, pause, next, previous keys to any playing media, so any audio or video, not just iTunes or Spotify. Okay, so what we're going to cover in order is optimizing your native Mac settings, followed by system enhancements, and then keyboard shortcuts, Alfred, productivity apps, and browser extensions. Alfred particularly I am so excited about, but we'll get to that in a moment in video number 4. So to begin optimizing your settings, this is laying the groundwork for everything that's to come. So do this right now. Don't be scared. Don't flinch about this. Just go into your settings, open trackpad, and move your trackpad speed up to the maximum. This is a productivity tip from the guy who came up with Sumo Me, and he said this is the one thing that's just supercharges productivity. Move your trackpad up to the maximum. Yes, you will find it scary at first. You'll find that you're overshooting with stuff, but over time, over 2 days, you'll get used to it, and then you'll be using someone else's trackpad, and you'll be like, I'm having to swing across the trackpad like 5 times to get across the screen, and you'll realize how held back we were before, like driving with the brakes on. Next thing, turn off all notifications. This is another big sweeping setting change, and I know it's scary, but it is so important that you are the one that is in control of what you have sat down to do that day. Don't allow anybody else to dictate your agenda for the day. If you have notifications on, you're just leaving yourself totally out in the open to be sideswiped by whoever decides that it's important to send you an email, or to, especially browser notifications, where any website that's published a new blog or someone's liked a photo or whatever suddenly becomes top of your list. Even if you don't action it, even if you don't do anything about the notification, just the fact that it's coming up on the corner of the screen and playing on your attention is enough to distract you, at least to then go back to what you were doing, and there's at least maybe 20 seconds of time to think like, okay, where was I at before? Some people say that the data suggests that switching time truly to get back into the flow that you were in, if you're distracted, is 18 minutes. Now, with most people's notifications, they're going off far more frequently than every 18 minutes. So you never actually get into this sense of true flow state. That's so important. Just sack off all notifications on your phone and on your MacBook. Some people will find that this is a scary thought, and you'll think, oh, but what if I miss something? What if I miss something important? Just try it for 2 days. If you end up finding that you're missing some crucial thing, then you either need a cadence for checking your emails or your texts or anything that's going to be an urgent, important problem, or maybe you need to look at your entire system. If you're missing something that's important so frequently, then maybe you need to look at the way that you're working in general. Next thing is setting up hot corners. So the one that I use most frequently is bottom right. You swing the mouse to the bottom right and it moves everything out the way. So if you have an app or a document or something you want to drag into the desktop or into a folder, you can just do that, move everything out of the way, and then move it back to bring everything back up again. You can set up the other corners for other functions as well. Really nice feature on Mac. Next, we have second monitor. So Mac OS Catalina has a new feature called Sidecart, where you can use a phone or a iPad as a second monitor. Alternatively, I'm just using an old TV, and it's great. It just means that if you're doing anything that involves referencing or writing or whatever, you have it up on one screen. That's your reference point. If you don't have anything else, if you just need one screen, just have your task manager on the other one. Something to remind you that this is the one thing that you're doing right now. Big game changer, very cheap to get a second monitor set up, and it makes you look like a big dick player, like some kind of stock trader. Next, we have system enhancements. So these are the next level up. Now, I should begin with saying that a lot of this being locked in to your computer and having that sense of flow, and it's going to sound silly, but it is from not taking your hands off the keyboard. As soon as you start using the mouse or the trackpad, you have then opened the window for scrolling, just infinite scrolling, and that's we know that scrolling leads to death. So anything you can do to keep your hands on the keyboard, you get things done a lot faster, and once you go keyboard, you will never go back. So what I would recommend is getting a browser extension called Vimium. What this allows you to do is control your entire browser from your keyboard. So I just pressed F there, all of these menu items come up, and if I want to open something, I just press the key that's relevant to it. So either if I want to say, oh, I need to watch, or I want to see the Formula One, so you go AH, or F, SC, and so you can browse entirely through your keyboard. It's far faster, and it just gives you this beautiful sense of being locked in. It has to be experienced to be fully believed. Next, we have Shortcut. What Shortcut does is the same thing, but system-wide, so just outside of the browser as well. And the way this works is it comes up with a little screen on the bottom there, and then anytime you type something, it allows you to do that it allows you to control that from within the keyboard. Soon this will be a Mac OS Catalina accessibility setting natively, but until then you can get Shortcut, and it is basically the same thing. So you just press the keyboard launcher for Shortcut and then type in whatever you want, and it'll find it on the screen. You don't have to then move the mouse at all. So now that we've got the keyboard stuff out the way, a password manager is so important as well. Typing in complex passwords, not only is it time consuming, but it's also not secure. If you are using the same password, or if you're relying on memory for passwords for everything, you're most likely using the same password for each login. If one of them gets breached, you've just blown your security across the whole board. Whereas a password manager will log you into things automatically, assuming you log into the master password, and it saves it all for you. It cross-platform, it'll go across your phone and your laptop and everything. And you also save having to repeatedly type in your delivery address and your credit card number and all that. Now you literally just press one keyboard shortcut and it just fills everything in. So if you're making an order online, press one thing, it will detect the form and it'll just fill it all in for you. So LastPass is free. 1Password is a monthly subscription. I use LastPass. I think I've used 1Password in the past, and it is good, but it's paid for, and yes, it's more powerful, but I think for the monthly cost, I think LastPass does 99% of what you need. There are some other ones available, such as Dashlane and Robo something. I've tried them; they're not great. Would really recommend LastPass as the best free option, and 1Password as the best paid option if money is just no object for you. Hyperswitch. So here is what Hyperswitch does. It turns your Alt tab into a beautiful, whoops, oh, there we are, into a preview window. There's also a few extra enhancements you can do with separate things where you can look within an app, so multiple windows within the same app, for example, and preview them. It's free, and it's another nice little enhancement there, so you can download that from hyperswitch.com, I think. Next we have Better Touch Tool. Better Touch Tool is a way to remap any kind of keyboard or trackpad gesture into something that it's a quite complex tasks. You can do it globally, or you can set it so that it only acts within certain apps. The ones that I have set up, as you can see, I use this quite a lot. So around 120 times a day, 100 times a day. And what this does is, so it allows you to remap kind of awkward native shortcuts, create your own shortcuts, create app-specific ones, and create so for example in Evernote, I've got one that just allows you press Shift and Enter, and then it highlights the thing and it bolds it and changes the formatting. You can also remap, syncing Evernote is Control Command S, which I find awkward, so instead you just change it to Command R. Here is what Better Touch Tool looks like. And here you can see I've got various shortcuts set up. So launching Evernote, for example, from within any app, maximizing a window to the right or to the left. That's really useful. And then maximizing the window in total. So that's just Command / or /, and that just moves it like that. You can then maximize, and then within each app we have, say, opening a new window or opening a new tab. Within Finder, that's moving a file to a different location. I will cover that in Alfred because that's a really cool feature. And then that's an automation workflow that I have. You can go through different key sequences as well. So here, this is if you want to move something across to a different space, you just hold Command and right, and then it shifts it across to that space. What else is there? Trackpad, so 4 fingers down does that, 4 fingers up shows the desktop, 4 finger right swipe and left swipe shifts things across to a different space, 3 finger tap looks something up in a dictionary. So if I want to say, what does title mean, it just looks it up in the dictionary. It is lovely. And then if you want to swipe something from the top edge, it closes the window. Swipe something from the left edge, maximizes the window to the next monitor. This is a game changer as well. So if you have 2 monitors up, you literally just swipe from the edge and it takes the window that's current and just flings it across to the other side, maximizes the window. And this is probably the most commonly used one. It sounds like a little feature, but if you have a notes pad or something, you just want to go fling, and it's as if you just picked it up and flung it across to the other side of the window. So there's a lot you can do with Better Touch Tool. I'm probably not that inventive with it, but there's great resources online where you can look at setups that people have. And if there's any task that you do repeatedly, or that you're finding yourself dragging the corner of the window like a chump, then get Better Touch Tool. It's like $12 or something, and it will change your life. So that's it for system enhancements. If you're interested in this stuff, I can cover some more advanced ones as well, but these are the basics that you need in place. Next, we have keyboard shortcuts. I've hopefully made a case for why keyboards is so important. There's actually a guy called Juji Mufu, who you will know from Instagram probably. He's a acrobat, martial artist, bodybuilder, but he's really big as well, but he's also really big on doing keyboard shortcuts and being in keyboard mode. Again, he's a man who has recognized this sense of being locked into something. So getting used to keyboard shortcuts. I learned these one by one on the fly, but if you want a cheat sheet, get the app called Cheat Sheet, and that basically allows you to bring up the main keyboard shortcuts for every app with a certain, you assign it a special keyboard shortcut itself, and that means that at least you can accelerate that learning curve for you. Get yourself used to seeing what it is that you have to do to select all, paste, whatever, and eventually that'll become so second nature that you won't need the cheat sheet app anymore. Some of the ones that I use the most, for example, this one. So across any app you can press this, and then that brings up the meta search function. That allows you to then say copy or paste or whatever, or if you just want to find something in the help document, so it's Shift Command ? That works across any app that has this function, which is a Mac native Mac feature. Across the rest of the system stuff, we have voice input. So if I press function twice, then it allows me to input voice control. If you heard that noise there, Alt and Tab is switch app. Now, what's amazing is Alt and Cedilla, which is the one down and right from Tab, allows you to switch the window for the same app. So if you have multiple notes documents open or multiple browser windows or something, you can switch between them with Alt Cedilla. Command Cedilla. Command W is close the window. Command Q is close the app. So that's quit the whole app, so make that distinction there. Command T, new tab, and then Shift and Cedilla does this.
Text to speech.
Very useful if you have your laptop or whatever, you want to go and do something, but you have an article that you want to listen to. If I'm making a coffee, for example, or if I'm going for a piss, you can just select something, do that, and then it'll read it out to you. Very, very useful feature. I think this is a custom keyboard shortcut that I've set up. You can edit them in keyboard settings within your Mac as well. Hopefully you're keeping up with me. Remember to use the play pause to start and stop the video as we go along. So trackpad, as I said, we've got the lookup feature. So if I triple click on a word, it looks it up in the dictionary. The dictionary loads there. Quadruple tap is bolding the text. Very useful. Triple click selects for a screenshot and puts it into the keyboard. So there's the image that I just took. Very exciting image there, into the clipboard. And then also, so that would normally be a keyboard shortcut for Shift Command 3. If you do Shift Command 4, whatever you select following that will then save that as an image to the desktop rather than putting it into your clipboard. And finally, swiping 2 fingers from the top. I'm not going to do that because it will close this presentation, but that just closes the current tab or the current window that's open. Next, for navigating text, these are super important, and if you don't use any of these alone will be a game changer for you. Command up goes to the start of any kind of highlighted or selected text that you have, so it moves that cursor up to the start. Command down moves to the end, and then command left and right moves to the start or the end of the current line. Alt, right and left, skips words rather than letters. Nothing worse than when you see someone holding down the right button and waiting for each letter to go across. Speaking of which, if you are doing that, or if you ever have a situation where you're holding a key down, set the key repeating rate to the maximum speed as well. Sometimes, I think the native one is where you hold it down and it pauses for a couple of seconds and then it goes but you don't want that. You want it to eliminate that pause at the start unless you're really fat fingered, and then just turn that up to the maximum speed. Finally, function backspace is delete. So the only thing I'd ever coveted, ever been envious of with a Windows computer is the delete button. Luckily what you can do here, see how I have the cursor before the word, function backspace is the delete function there. So that's lovely. Next, keyboard shortcuts within specific apps. So Evernote. Evernote is an app that if you are not using, I'll cover that in the next couple of videos, but it is essential. What this does, so I've set on Better Touch Tool, this keyboard shortcut to launch Evernote, and then all I have to do, in fact I've now changed it to simply Command J, and the condition is that if Evernote is not currently live, I press that and it brings it to the front, or it launches Evernote. You then press it again and it opens up Evernote Switcher, which is like Spotlight or a live search for all of your Evernotes. Following that, if you press Command /, it takes the most active, or it takes the current note, copies the public link to it and copies it to the clipboard. So if you need to share a note, literally it's a keyboard shortcut away. Command plus and Command minus will make the text larger and smaller, and then obviously Command B, Command U and Command I are to bold, underline and italicize the text. Command Shift and H is to put a horizontal line below, and there's more keyboard shortcuts here which you can check out. This is one that I use quite a lot as well if you want to move something from one notebook to another, you just press that and it opens up the notebook switcher. You just choose the notebook that you want with the keyboard and it sends it across. Finally, this one's very useful if you've copied something from a different source and you want to strip the formatting. Command-Shift-F just makes it into plain text once again. This is a better touch tool customization I've added, where if you have a note that's selected in the background, you just press Command-Enter, opens up that selected note. Right, phew, so almost done. PowerPoint, Control-S. This is a I think this saved me gigabytes and gigabytes of data here. If you are a student or if you're someone that gets a lot of PowerPoint presentations on your hard drive, and the basic bitches that send you these big ass PowerPoint slides with uncompressed images and it's like 20 megabytes and you're like, oh, this is awful. Set up this Mac Automator script. If you want the code for it, let me know in the comments below and I'll send you it. This allows you to press Control-S. It goes through all of the images in PowerPoint, compresses the image, doesn't affect the visual quality of it. Any kind of bits of the image that are cropped outside of the slide, so you wouldn't see them anyway, it crops them in, reduces the file size by like 80–90%, and it then just resaves it as the same file on your hard drive, cuts them down, will save you loads of hard drive space. Finally, last three. So we have MindNode. MindNode is the app that I am presenting this on, and if I use Tab, for example, it creates a new node. If you press Enter, it creates one underneath this, like a child node, and then Command left and right. Sorry. And then holding down Command with the different arrow keys allows you to either move a node, move it back or forward, and shift them around without using your mouse. You can also drag them obviously as well, like a chump. Do not use your mouse. Try and use your keyboard as much as possible. Next we have with Chrome. So I'm not actually using Chrome, I'm using something called Brave, which I would recommend to use later. But what this allows you to do is, if we have multiple, I'm just using BBC as the example here, but you can switch between tabs with the keyboard. You can close a tab, you can reopen the last opened one, you can enable the Evernote clipper, which is this one. So you can then save any page that you have to Evernote with that one key as well. So there we are for the Chrome shortcuts. Finally, if you're watching something in YouTube, this is really helpful too. So J, K, and L are to go back, pause, or forward 10 seconds. Don't use the space button, it's useless. Sometimes it jumps halfway down the page. It's K that you want to use. And then the numbers 0 to 9 are to skip things across there. And then finally, you can increase and reduce the speed with Command open and close bracket. So I'll give you an example of that. So if I go to Meditation 101, this is a video that I have on meditation. So if I want to skip, so I've just muted it there with M. If I want to skip forward or backwards, it's J and K. To play and pause, it's K. Sorry, J and L rather. To play and pause, it's K. And then to skip throughout the video, I'm pressing 6, 7, 8 to move at different points within the video. If we then want to speed it up, that's the Shift square bracket and Shift greater than and less than, and there we go. So that's it for keyboard shortcuts. I hope that was helpful. Make sure you've set all of those things up in terms of the Mac native settings and the system enhancements. And once you've done that, we will go on to covering Alfred, productivity apps, and browser extensions.